aka Dr. K. What is going on, man? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning, Seth. Thank you for having me. This is lovely. I'm happy to be here. Happy to be here. Spend some time together.
Happy to have you here. We were connected through our good friend Dr. Al. Sometimes he likes to be referred to as Alan, but we hear that and we have no idea who that is.
I don't know who that guy is.
I don't know who Alan is. Dr. Al though.
Yeah, Dr. Al. Hey, we were literally just at Starbucks. We're like stopping by to pick up a little hot chocolate. I do coffee in the morning. Al's always doing hot chocolate, and we're walking by and. One of the guys that's working at Starbucks, he's just like, Dr. Al, the legend, he's here. I'm like, everywhere I go, man, everywhere I go, people stop and stare. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
I've seen so many signs. I've seen, ads on TV. The guy is amazing.
Yeah.
The guy's amazing. I'll have to have him on the show sometime.
Yeah, I don't even know what we're doing here.
Right? Like, maybe we can call him, see if he can get on.
I'll see if I can fit us into his busy schedule.
Yeah, of course.
I'll work something out.
Hey, well, I want to thank you for taking time today to come on the show. I know in our talks previously, you are an extraordinary guy, and the way you think, your mindset, your attitude towards what you do, I think is absolutely amazing, and I kind of want to share that with our listeners. So, why don't you kind of describe who you are, what you do?
So just a little backstory, I've kind of been all over the place. So I've moved a lot, I've worked a lot of places, now have kind of settled into Southern California, called Los Angeles home. Ended up going through medical training. I was in Toronto, Nebraska, Boston, Chicago, and Newport. Just finished up my fellowship down at UC Irvine, and now I'm in private practice in LA. I do corneal transplants, refractive surgery, kind of anterior segment cataract surgery is sort of my gig. But I think there's a lot of things that I'm passionate about, a lot of things that I want to be able to have involved in my life. And I think doctors can sometimes get a little pigeonholed into the job without necessarily getting involved in other ventures and other ways that you can contribute, other ways that you can connect with people, because ultimately you end up with a little bit of a skill set and in this training and this way of looking at things. And I think while it is applicable to medicine, there's a lot of other ways that you can use that training and use that thought process to kind of make a contribution to people.
And throughout your training, throughout your studying, at what point was it for you where you said, you know what, hey, I love the training, I love what I'm doing, and I can't change medicine necessarily because, like we spoke before, in medical school it's very regimented. Mm-hmm. But at what point was it for you where you're like, you know what, I may be able to do my own thing with it, or change it up to be a little more stylistic for me?
I mean, to be honest, it might have been in quarantine, and I think quarantine has been a difficult thing for a lot of people, I think that everybody's gotten a little bit more time to themselves, and a little bit more time to think about things and what's important and what's your vision, what do you want to do with yourself, and when you're busy and you're doing all these things and you're all over the place, it's easy to kind of keep rolling with that. And in some senses, I think, at least for me, the quarantine time was a little bit of a blessing to have some time to sit and really think about, what do I want to do, and then actually having some time to do it, because ultimately, it's both a combination of having, that vision and what do you want to create with your life, but also having the time to do it.
And I would say yes, 100%. Quarantine did allow us to have that time, but it also allowed us to have that time to think like, oh man, I can't do anything. Oh man, I'm stuck here. Oh man, like I want to be doing so many other things. And this is why I love the podcast, because I like to have people on who think like you, where, hey, this is actually giving me an opportunity. Mm-hmm. So I want to kind of dive into that. Where did you develop that mindset to be like, hey, something terrible in the world happens and we have this pandemic, but I can make this work to my advantage?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good question. I guess I don't really. I guess I've always kind of been that way. I'm not. I think some of it probably stems from immigrant background. My folks are originally from Belgrade. They left Yugoslavia right before the war, and so I was born in Toronto. Spent 10 years in Canada before I came to the States. But I think in some ways a lot of immigrants have sort of that mentality that you kind of have to figure it out. There's no great rule book for, pack up, leave your country, leave your culture, leave your people, and start something new. And I think that there's certain attributes that make it possible for you to be able to survive in this new environment. And I think some of those attributes, I think come out. It's not necessarily that you have to be an immigrant to have some of those attributes, but I think that it does bring some of those things out. So it probably, yeah, I think family influence, particularly, my parents, they went through a lot. So in some senses, I also remember just through, college, med school, this idea of knowing, what sort of things they did in order to give me an opportunity, and not wanting to squander that. Wanting them to feel like, hey, we left this country, we wanted to give our family a better opportunity, and we decided to start a family here, and our kids took that and they ran with it, and they were able to create something with it.
Man, that's pretty cool. It's like having this like deep appreciation for something previously that your parents went through, that like the struggle to actually like provide an opportunity. Not a lot of kids really have that,
Yeah.
and to no fault of their own.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's such a unique experience that you have, and that you can pass on to everyone that you meet. I think that's super cool. I heard something the other day that I just want to share it with you.
Please.
I think we can be diagnosed as this.
All right.
Pathologically optimistic. Like literally, a pandemic happens, shit hits the fan.
Absolutely.
But like, hey, we're cool. We're all right. We're going to find a way to make this, to find an advantage in this for us.
Well, I think some of the strength though is in the community, because I think if there's anything that I've learned, since we've met and since we've gotten a chance to spend some time together, is I think there's strength in numbers and there's strength in your community. So you get people together that support each other. We all have good days, we have bad days, but having that bond and having that community around you, I think is what really makes anything possible, right? You have the right people around you, you have the right influences, you can do anything you want. And I think, particularly in times like this, for people that I've seen that have really dug in to their community and their support system and their network, and even expanded that network during a difficult time, I think ends up making the best of a difficult situation.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, if there's one thing that I preach to people, it's use your network. Build your network. Don't be afraid to use people around you as a resource to you, because in the end, people like helping people.
They do. Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to hear no, to some questions that you ask, but it's like an innate, it's in human nature. Like people really help people and they like it. Mm-hmm. So kudos to you for recognizing that, and just great point. I kind of want to talk about the communities you've been around, because you've been around some pretty extraordinary, people, and you're in some like pretty cool circles. What your residency?
They would like to think so.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, you told me a cool story about getting residency at Northwestern. Mm-hmm. Can you share that, with the audience on the podcast?
Yeah, of course. So there. So when I started medical school, I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to go into, and I remember I had a mentor that trained at Northwestern, and beginning of my medical school training, she had sat me down and she's like, I don't know what you're going to go into, but you're going to do it at Northwestern. And at the time, I didn't even know, I was living in Nebraska. I didn't even know where Northwestern was. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, all right, that sounds nice. And in time, it started to kind of morph into this vision that that's just where I'm supposed to be. And I don't even know why, but it felt like that was what I was supposed to be doing. And basically started building and working towards that goal that I worked at for years, and honestly wanted more than anything I've ever wanted since, or before or since. There was nothing that I wanted more than that, and I put everything that I had into studying, into preparing, into making sure that I had sort of the application put together to have this thing be possible, and it almost became an idea bigger than itself. It became like an idea that was bigger than just going to Northwestern. In some senses, almost like kind of California, like the final frontier, like, because ultimately, people that come here, they don't come for the land, even though the land is nice and, the scenery is nice and the weather's good. But I think what a lot of people get drawn for is there's the vision that, there's something here for you. There's it's the final frontier. This is somewhere where you go. And that for me was what Northwestern was initially, and I was fortunate enough to go and spend a month there, and I still remember talking to the program director that I still am very fond of, that he asked me at the end of the month, do you have any questions for me? And I was just like, can I come here? And he's like, well, we'll interview you and we'll see how things go. And I'm like, okay, but this is what I want, and it ended up working out. I still remember when he called. I got this phone call from a Chicago phone number, so the way I can't remember if we've talked much about residency match. So, medical training, when you apply to a residency, it's almost kind of, I think, like sorority rush in college kind of runs similarly, where, there's this matching system where you end up, a bunch of applicants interview at a bunch of schools, and the schools interview a bunch of applicants, and then they all punch these things into this computer program, and it kind of spits out trying to give the most people happiness. So there's these two rank lists, and so ultimately you don't really know where you're going until this computer spits out where you're going to go. So they kind of match how things are going to work out for you. And I remember getting this phone number from a Chicago phone number, and it said Chicago, Illinois on the phone, and I answer, and it's hey, it's Dr. Piatetsky is the Dmitry Piatetsky is the program director at Northwestern then and still. And he's like, Alex, I'd like to let you know that you're coming to Northwestern for residency, and it was incredible. I still remember it. It was like one of the most pivotal moments of my life where I got this thing that I wanted so bad, and I feel like it was kind of like a shift for me in how I viewed what was possible. And in some senses, it almost represented, this larger idea that, if you want something and you work at it, and you can have it, you can actually create this thing, this idea out of nothing. And I feel like ever since that happened, it's been a total paradigm shift for me in the way that I just viewed life and what was possible and what you were able to create.
Now, go deeper into what it really took to get to Northwestern, because you told me before, like, you foot the bill, or you paid the whole bill to go out there and just intern. You put yourself in front of all these different people to really make it happen, and this isn't something they asked you to do. This wasn't required.
No.
So kind of like go into what you did and then why you thought that like you needed to do that.
Well, so medical training is it's funny. It's funny. So ophthalmology as a field is tough to get into. The country pumps out 450 ophthalmologists every year. So like graduating residents for a country of 300 million people, right? So there's not all that many people that go through the training program. So there's kind of this bottleneck of individuals that are interested in the field and they want to give it a shot. So it ends up being, there's a handful of these fields, ophthalmology being one of them, that is a little bit challenging to get into. So, from the program standpoint, they're in a nice position because they have all these people that are vying for them. They kind of get to look at all these suitors. They're kind of like the pretty girl that gets to decide, who they have all these people that are interested, and they get to decide which one they like. Basically ended up applying for this rotation at Northwestern and spending a month there and coming out of Nebraska, it's not, it's great school, but, going into ophthalmology at the time, it wasn't a super well-known program. There's a lot of these super famous eye hospitals around the country that, medical students that come out of some of these eye hospitals, they're in a competitive advantage, right? In this kind of this dating game. And so coming out of Nebraska, not being in that position, I thought that the only way that I would be able to kind of really make myself stand out was if I showed up. I think it's still kind of cheesy, but some of that success thing, 90% or whatever, is just showing up. I think that people, when they see what you're willing to do and that you'll come, that you'll actually show up, I think people they'll go to bat for you. I actually just had that, yesterday at one of the hospitals that I'm working at. I'm starting to get some of my corneal transplant stuff sorted, and I just showed up. So I came to the OR, and I was there with one of the lead technicians, Renee, and he's showing me around all this stuff, and I can tell that he was excited that I was there. That I showed up and I was there, and we were going to go through this stuff together. We were going to find what we needed, what do we not do, and we'll build a team, and we'll have this bond, and we'll create this together. I think people that are willing to do that, you'll find that there's all sorts of people that want to help you out with it. And the Northwestern experience was very much that I think I came in and was able to build a bond with a lot of these, the chairman, the program director, and a lot of the faculty there. And I think they were able to see that, I wanted to contribute to their vision. Right. Mm-hmm. It was their vision that I wanted to contribute to, and I still actually remember even the chairman telling me one day that when he looks at people that are coming in, and I think this is something worth knowing, really probably for anybody who's applying to a residency or a fellowship or a job or kind of whatever. I remember him telling me that when I came, at the end of the day, you end up with a lot of people that are qualified, right? A lot of people that are qualified that could do the job. But at the end of the day, what he ends up looking for are people that really want to be there. And that's something that's important to them, that they really want to be there, because at the end of the day, it does in some senses end up being a job. There's ups, there's downs, and we cover call, and I'm in the ER at 3:00 in the morning, and if you ask me, do you love being in the ER at 3:00 in the morning? I'm like, not exactly. That's I don't know if that's the dream, but I still remember him telling me that you'll find that people that got what they wanted, that really wanted to be there, even when that 3:00 in the morning comes, they approach it a little differently than somebody who just kind of ended up there. Mm-hmm. So I think in that sense, being coy, I was not very coy at all, and I think I was very open that this was something that was important to me, and I was going to put everything I had into it, and it ended up working out incredible. They changed my life without a doubt.
That's awesome. And Northwestern is an extremely prestigious medical school, and just a place to do your residency. That's absolutely incredible in itself.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. I'm very fortunate.
And I mean, you make such a good point, because it's hard to stop anyone who knows where they want to go. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes people say, I don't know exactly what I want to do. Even like you said, mm-hmm. I don't know exactly what I want to do, but you had that vision, you had that path. Mm-hmm. Where you wanted to go on that path. I want to be here at Northwestern, and that can translate for anybody. Like, pick what it is, whatever it is you want to do, wherever you want to go, and just go. Put 100% effort into it, because you are a living example of how that can work out for you. Mm-hmm. I think that's incredible.
Well, and sometimes you don't know what you want, right? So mm-hmm. so then if you take that a step back and think about what if I don't know what I want, I think sometimes you just have to pick. Mm-hmm. you end up you use the information that you have, and you try to make an educated decision, and that's what we do a lot of in medicine. You have to make the call, and I think sometimes that initial step can be a scary one because it's a little bit of a leap of faith. And I know what's that saying that it's better to be right, or, it's better to be sure than right. And I don't know if that's something that you want to hear from your doctor as as a general life philosophy, but in some senses, I think that sometimes that's important. You just have to decide, and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, absolutely. Just because it's on my mind, I want to ask you, when was like the first time you were in medical school and they challenged you and your peers to be like, okay, this is a situation, you can do this, you can do this. They're both technically right, but we're testing to make sure that you're sure, not just right.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's there's a lot of kind of things they try in med school. We kind of have these learning groups. We have there's actual tests where you sit down and you take the little bubble sheet test and you kind of fill this stuff out. There's tests where you have to kind of demonstrate stuff. They kind of these like clinical exams where they end up giving you a thing that you need to do. And then there's some of these like kind of problem based learning where it's sort of like a team based. There's some doctor that's been doing this for a while who sits down with all the med students and you guys kind of work through this problem together. And at the end of the day, we all kind of get there's different grading systems that go through all this stuff. But what I would actually tell you is in med school, there's usually a right answer. In life, there isn't, and in the actual job, there isn't as much of a right answer as there is in med school. When they do the training, they really kind of want you there to walk down this particular path. And there's this old joke that half of what when you finish up with medical training, that half of what they teach you in med school is truth and half is a lie, but no one tells you which half is which. And they and in some sense, I think that does kind of end up being the case, because you'll find that when I have some of my patients that there are things that I think are right, and I've followed sort of experiences and things that I've been taught, but sometimes the answer is not A, B, C, or D, and then what do you do?
Right.
And how do you end up navigating that? It's almost a whole new growth that ends up happening for physicians as you transition from the kind of the medical training aspect, which is sort of a way to teach you how to take stuff in and put stuff out, to real critical thinking where there isn't always a right answer.
Right.
And I think a lot of that you end up sort of developing on your own.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. It's like kind of finding your own path, right?
Yep.
Which
is kind of what you've done, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Life takes you to so many different places. I shouldn't say it takes you. Life has taken me to so many different places.
Taken me too. It's taken us.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And there are things in entertainment that I've been fortunate to do that I thought it's crazy that I'm here. I've thought about that. I've been on a movie set. I've been, I've been like the actor in the movie, and it is crazy to think that that has happened in my life.
Yep.
And through all that I have tried and everyone that I've met, that led to building this podcast, which is something that just takes so much of my passion and blows it up, which is what I love. And I've always been looking for that. Always been looking for that in everything that I've done, whether it's a corporate job, whether it's something in the arts. But when I found this, it was like, okay, I'm having these intellectual conversations with people who are of the same mindset, and have done absolutely extraordinary things. This gives me the platform to really be able to have those thoughtful conversations with people who are leaders in their communities, leaders in their countries, leaders in their businesses, leaders in everything that they're doing. And it's just opened up my mind. It's given me so much appreciation for being able to just start something, starting simple and doing it, saying like, hey, I'm going to start this. I hope this works out. And it has done that tenfold for me.
Well, and honestly, I mean, what I love about it, and why I was excited to come join you on this, is because this is really you. It's whether there's the microphone on or the camera on, this is actually you. Because we've had these same conversations, just no mic, just hanging out,
Yeah.
and it's the same talks about the same stuff, the same vibe, I think that's what's really extraordinary. To be able to take something that's very personal, it's very individualistic to you and your vision and kind of how you want to do things, and then be able to turn it into a platform that you can share with other people. And I think you're an inspiring guy. I think there's you have your own vision about how things should be done, and I think you're pretty introspective in that sense, and you're growing. And I think that's something that a lot of people, if not everybody, would benefit from having some of that experience. And that's what I feel like. So fortunate that some guy decided to introduce us to each other.
Yeah, right. I don't know who that guy is.
Yeah, so it's just some
definitely
guy.
not Alan.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not Dr. Al.
Yeah. You thank you, by the way. And you bring up a good point. We were slightly talking about this earlier when we were like, everyone has titles. Mm-hmm. Not everyone has a job, but people have jobs, and then that becomes their identification. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes in your profession or in your title, you're not able to speak about the things that really do excite you or really things that you are really passionate about on the day-to-day. Mm-hmm. But what this podcast was for me was, I'm able to talk about how people have found extraordinary in themselves. And in a sales job or in the arts, you're not always able to just talk about those things freely. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know what I could say for others except for the fact that if you're looking for something to, whatever your passion is, whatever the things are that you want to talk about, start simple. Just start talking about it. Throw on the camera. And you'll realize that there are so many other people that can relate to you. Mm-hmm. You just haven't found them yet. But you need to put yourself out there and be that resource for them as well.
And then you can DM Seth, and he'll talk to you about it.
100%, yeah.
And I know you would.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
But no, I mean, I'm totally with you. I think you find that we all live in a little bit of a bubble, right? And we have like our own little bubble and our own little sphere. And it's this little, a subset of the real world. And we all live, we've got our circle of friends, we've got our places we go and we get coffee, and we do all these things. We go to work, we work out. And the world is actually much, much bigger than that bubble. And I think as, if sometimes you can feel a little stuck. And I think that's kind of what you were alluding to with some of this COVID stuff, right? People are less mobile, right? You're a little bit more stuck in the situation. Mm-hmm. But if you find ways that to start, taking a step out of that bubble, right? You start to find there's just so many incredible people doing incredible things. That extraordinary, that the extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. But they're not going to break down your living room door except for this time.
Right.
and I'm talking about Dr. Al.
Yeah, of course.
But you have to put yourself out there to really make some of those things possible, because hanging out in your living room watching Netflix, there's only so many opportunities that are gonna come through the door for you. So you really kind of you do things that make yourself uncomfortable sometimes, and make yourself available for things. There's a lot that can come your way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to kind of touch on that for a second, because that's something that you're doing right now. Every physician, every doctor doesn't need to be on a podcast or mm-hmm. create more of a social presence, but that's something that you're doing. Mm-hmm. And why are you doing it?
Well, there's a few reasons. One, initially, medicine is a little bit it's a little bit boxy. You operate within this box and you have a skill set that people come to you for, and when people come to me to do their surgery, it's like it's sort of a clear goal, and with a lot of my patients, you develop a relationship along the way, and you're able to kind of make a contribution to these people's lives, and I think that in some senses, as a standard clinical physician, there is a limitation to how many people you're able to impact, how many people you're able to influence, how many people you're able to provide good for, because you have one patient interaction at a time. And I think, if you move to another sphere where you don't have that ceiling, right? And, perhaps the way that you do things, the way that you think about things could be beneficial for, your community, the greater population, people around you, your family, your friends. It starts to expound what your reach is. You can scale. Right? You can scale what you're doing because you're no longer confined to that individual patient interaction. And I think, a lot of people that I know and, friends that I have that are in medicine that don't follow as much of the clinical route, I know that has been their motivation. Whether it's, through, development of some new device, through development of some new medication, through, consulting, some of these other avenues that physicians, try to make their contribution that isn't necessarily direct patient care, you're able, it opens up the door to how many people you can impact. You make some new device that now ends up being used by millions of patients. Those are people that you were able to make a positive impact in their life, in a way that, there's just not enough hours in the day for you to do on an individual basis. So, part of my desire has been to be able to have some expression outside of just the day job. And, I think I've been a lot of places. I've met a lot of people, and I've been fortunate to have a lot of those influences on me. And I feel like I've gotten a lot of benefit from these people that I've met. And, my hope would be that as a result of that I've changed. And that's influenced my thinking and what I'm able to sort of provide to people, to the community, to the population. And, my hope would be that I'm able to give some of that back, and to share some of those things so that hopefully, there's some med student that wants to go to Northwestern Ophthalmology. And I know them, so you could give me a call if that's something that you're interested in. But whatever your Northwestern is, whatever your Northwestern is, that hopefully there could be some ideas and some vision to help you achieve what it is that you want to do.
That's like poetic. I love that.
No, well, it's it's something that means a lot to me. It's something that means a lot to me. So I think if because you find that people invest a lot in you, and I think particularly in medicine, what I sort of feel really passionate about at this point is that you find that medical training is a major societal investment in you. When you're doing those 15-hour days in the hospital and you're studying, you're learning how to do all these things. You're not really making a contribution, right? You're taking in all this stuff, and you have mentors that are trying to teach you things. You have patients that are trying to teach you things. You're in the library trying to get all this knowledge, and along the way, you're not making a lot of a contribution. And when you get done, you're on the other side of it. You've finished 10 years worth of training. I think that's where it's now your time that, people have invested in you. And now it's your turn to invest in them. And you learn a lot of things along the way, whether it's a skill set or whether it's a way of problem solving or thinking about things, and being able to really make now your contribution to the community, because the community invested in you, and now it's your turn. And I feel like that's kind of where I am these days, where really all I think about is how can I provide value? How can I provide value to my friends? How can I provide value to my family? How can I provide value to the people that have invested so much in me? And in some of that, including the community and the larger population, because people invest in you, and now I'm trying to give back.
I think what I love the most about all of that is that you are giving back. You're seeing patients daily, and you're changing their lives. But you also want more. And that's something that I should acknowledge about you, because you meet a lot of people in their profession, and it's like, this is my job, this is what I do, and that's that's it. I like making my money and living my life, whatever that life is. But with you in particular, you want more than that. You want to be able to provide more than what you're already providing. You want to be able to do more and be that sounding board for a lot of people in a lot of different facets. Mm-hmm. And that's something special that I think is just, it goes back to what I was saying about the podcast. If I didn't build the podcast to talk about finding extraordinary within people, I don't know that I'm able to find you and have a really great, thoughtful conversation with someone that is trying to be their absolute best and do so many great things that you're not only doing in your job, but like you get to do outside of your job. You're pursuing outside of your job. Doing what you're doing as a doctor is pretty difficult. Not everyone gets to be able to do that or has, that education. Mm-hmm. But to still be pursuing something after that, what's driving you?
Well, I think it's, first of all, thank you. You keep on telling me all these nice things, and you're very
pretty cool, man.
You're
pretty cool.
Very kind to me, Seth. I think there's a vision that I'm pursuing, and the job is a part of it, but it's actually not about the job, and I think that's really why it doesn't end for me, at work, clock in, clock out. I don't clock in. What I do at work is an extension of the way that I view this vision and this thing that I'm pursuing. And I think, there's a larger idea. There's a larger idea at stake that I'm sort of trying to create, and there's different paintbrushes, if you will, that I use to kind of try to paint this picture. And eye surgery is just one of them. But I think the job allows me to make a contribution. And I think in a way that I think is extremely satisfying to see somebody who was blind who can now see. And being able to see that experience for them, and not only just for that patient, that individual who is now able to view their life differently, and what how their life looks, but also their family members, right? Because we're all interconnected. So when you change the situation for one person, I see I've had a lot of my patients, they come in with their families, and to see the entire experience for them as a unit being different, because now grandma is able to see, grandma has her autonomy back, and she has some of this quality of life. So now her kids or her grandkids have some of their autonomy back, because they don't have to take care of her. She's able to pursue some of the things that she wants to do. So and then you expound that into the larger community. It's such a beautiful gift to be a part of. Because that's really all I view myself as, is just kind of a part of this vision. Sort of, no pun intended.
Love it.
Of this larger thing that you're able to make your contribution. And
Yeah.
I still remember when I was probably second year med school, that I had a friend that was telling me about this lunch lecture, and she was like, hey, there's this guy that seems like a pretty cool dude, giving a talk. He was in Nepal doing some eye surgeries. Why don't you come and listen to this lunch lecture? And I'm like, all right, I mean, it sounds like I used to travel a lot, kind of grown up, and so I was like, oh, like I'd never been to Nepal. It sounds like fun. So I sat and I listened to this talk. So Mike Fielmeyer, who was a mentor of mine, and he basically showed this video of him, going to Nepal, and being in this like rural village and doing like 100 cataract surgeries in like 2 days, and then this video afterwards of all these people taking these patches off their eyes, and everyone's crying, everyone's hugging, and he and he's able to kind of like take this picture with his whole community who he just was single-handedly able to change, and he doesn't get paid for this stuff, like he flies to Nepal, and does this work, and I remember watching that and being like, wow, like that's incredible. That's extraordinary. This is a guy who is really changing the world, in the realest sense. He's really changing the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the shift of, that's not a job to him. He doesn't clock in, clock out. He doesn't do it for the money. I imagine he's doing fine, but he does it because of this larger vision of what he views as his role in the world and what he's able to make his contribution. And Mike actually, he set up a rotation for me, so I spent a month at that eye hospital, Tilganga, in Nepal, in Kathmandu.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, through this. So it's this project called the Himalayan Cataract Project. There's a incredible guy, Jeff Tabin, who's at Stanford now, ophthalmologist, who started this program through with a Nepalese ophthalmologist, and they have literally changed the world. I mean, it's and I remember as a med student watching what do I want to be a part of, because I think ultimately that if there's one thing that I think that I've done well in my life, it's been finding people that I thought were doing what I wanted to do, and just following them. And just try to learn from them, try to learn, how do they do it? How do they think about things? How do they structure stuff in order to be able to build some of these things? And being able to watch what these guys were creating, and like, I mean, I was just mesmerized. I was like, this is just like some of the most amazing work I've ever seen. And to be able to spend some time with them and to learn, about this vision, I think has helped me realize, my own vision and what I wanted to create.
That's incredible. Was that the moment in time after going to that lecture? Was that when you decided, like, hey, I want to be in ophthalmology?
Yeah, I was like, this is it. This is my jam. And in some senses, right, I was like a second year med student at the time. I mean, I don't really know what the job
in Nebraska,
is. In Nebraska,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
in Nebraska. And I didn't really know what the job was. But I guess I just kind of decided that, I really respected what these people were doing and what they were able to do and what the impact they were able to have. And I think that we all kind of strive for being able to make an impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
To feel like that you matter, that you're making a real contribution, that because I think that that's ultimately what ends up driving all of us, that it matters whether you get out of bed in the morning today and that you're able to be a part of something that's bigger than you. And I think particularly people that have been able to find that, and I think people find it in all sorts of ways, whether it's work or personal life or family life or these responsibilities and things that you're passionate about. I think having kind of that North Star of this vision that this is what I'm about, it really helps align a lot of things, and it pulls you out of some of the day-to-day irritations, and oh, I'm stuck in LA traffic, and and I'm able to, it's not that big of a deal that I'm stuck in LA traffic because I'm pursuing this thing that I believe in.
Yeah. And that all came from just saying yes to something that you didn't really even know about. I'm kind of interested.
Yeah.
Why don't I go check it out?
Mm-hmm.
That is the point. You as the listener, you need to just take that in and let it soak into your body. Just say yes. Go to whatever it is your friend's inviting you to, or listen to that seminar. Go, just whatever that opportunity is that you don't even think is an opportunity. It could change your life. It obviously changed yours. It changed the path of it. It carved the path of where exactly you were looking to go. No pun intended. After going to that.
There's so many eyeball jokes.
Yeah, I know.
Just so many easy eyeball jokes.
It's alley-oops, man. You just throw me the ball. I have to dunk it.
I know. It's all you.
But great point that comes out of that story. I think that is so cool. And you just, you never know. Even during a pandemic, everyone's inviting people to things online. Mm-hmm. Everyone. If you have an internet connection, you have the opportunity to go and listen to almost anybody because everyone's giving lectures for free now. Mm-hmm. Go to YouTube, search something that you're slightly interested in, and just, dive into it. Could possibly change your life.
Well, and even what I've been doing as well a lot now with the pandemic is that since things are not what they used to be. I think reading ends up being a beautiful way to get some of these perspectives, and some of it can be listening to a thoughtful podcast from a thoughtful guy, and possibly learning about how Seth structures his life.
I thought you were talking about Dr. Al. I'm so sorry.
But I think there's a lot of extraordinary people that wrote books about how they do things, and I think I mentioned you last time that we chatted. Probably my favorite book that I read in quarantine was Ray Dalio's Principles on Life and Work. So Ray Dalio, of course, the venture capital hedge fund guy who started Bridgewater, who. I think is a little bit of an enigma. I kind of stay out of some of that stuff, and I read his book, and I think his thoughts are so principled. He's so principled that I think it allows you to take a dive into someone else's mind, right? It's like this deep dive into how somebody else does things, and particularly if it's someone that did things that you want to do, and someone that you respect, or someone that was able to accomplish things that you were interested in. Studying them is I think it is so important. Is so important. I was always a basketball guy, and I still remember like some of these videos that I'd watch of Kobe doing some of these shots that they do these side-by-side images of like him and Jordan, and it was like the same shot, the same steps, and it was like, oh, like he's doing the same move that Jordan did, and I think that you start to find that a lot of the things that you want to do have actually already been done, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to figure this stuff out for your own. There's a lot of people that either will directly reach out and throw you a bone and will teach you how to do things, or they created a resource for exactly that. And that was in the introduction, Dalio's book. He talks about how he wishes that people, other great minds that he respected, some of the Bill Gateses and Steve Jobs, would write books about how they did it. And specifically, he talks about Steve Jobs saying, I wish he would have written a book talking about how he built Apple, and really how he thought about it, how he took that vision, and how he was able to create what ended up now being it's just a movement, really, that's kind of changed the world. And that's what he talks about. His goal of the book was that he wanted to be able to provide a resource for people that maybe want to learn something from some of the things that he did, and it's awesome. I think it's I would recommend. I can't remember if you said you read it or not.
I haven't read it yet. And to your point, like, I'm not a great reader. I read a lot, but I'm not a great reader. So it takes me a little while to get through some books. And you're right. You know, they're the inspiration to what could possibly be in your life, especially if you take some of the principles that come out of the mindset that comes out of the writer. So one book in particular, I recommend it to everybody. It's called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Okay.
And it's not a book you should read. It's a book you should listen to.
Okay.
Listen to the audiobook. It's unreal. He was the head of the CIA, he was the head of FBI negotiation. And he basically explains his principles on negotiating. And there's tone inflection that's involved in it. There's pace that's involved in it. And this is why I'm saying listen to it, because he explains these scenarios that he was able to, you know, like hostage negotiations and like infiltration negotiation, and then like buying a car, like something as simple as that. And it's just, when I was listening to it, it like, it spoke to me, and all I wanted to do was like try what he was saying.
Yeah.
So I recently bought a car.
Okay.
Followed his principles,
Yeah.
and it worked.
Yeah.
It's exactly like what you're talking about with Kobe mirroring Jordan.
Yeah.
Like his steps were obviously, like, Kobe is unreal and Jordan are unreal.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I'm talking about buying cars versus being like a Hall of Fame basketball player.
Yeah, but there's some there's some
Yeah.
undertones. Yeah.
But it was like, oh my gosh, I am so happy I read this book, because now I got like 20% off this car
Yeah.
that I would have not done otherwise.
Right.
You know, and it's to the whole point. It's like reading can change your life, because there are people who have like a ton of wisdom, right? And they've written their thoughts on paper, or, you know, shared their thoughts through a microphone and recorded it. And whether you had like great parenting, or, you know, you didn't necessarily have a mentor, you have this wisdom that goes back, you know, thousands of years, that's available to you through a book or through an audio recording.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a resource that everyone should use. But I was going to say, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Well, just to that point, I think the other appreciation is just knowing that, you know, no one is good at everything, right?
Yeah.
No one is good at everything. So, you know, I think that if you're able to find people and meet them in their ball game, right? You know, in their ball game of, you know, how does this person do this particular thing? So, right, you know, if I want to learn about venture capital, I want to talk to Ray Dalio. You know, that you know, if I want to be a great chef, I don't know if I want to talk. I mean, maybe he's a great chef, but you know that, you know, maybe there's someone that may be better suited for that role. And I think if you're able to pursue, you know, someone who's really special in this particular sphere, and, you know, kind of swim out in the deep end with them, right? And it's going to be uncomfortable, right? It's going to be uncomfortable when you're hanging out with someone who's really excellent at what they do.
Yeah.
And I would say, you know, that was sort of the experience for me in my fellowship, where, you know, you finish residency, and, you know, you have kind of this basic skill set, and there's some things that you know how to do, and, you know, you feel like you're able to kind of hang at a particular level, and then you go into fellowship, and, you know, the people that I trained with are incredible. I mean, they're so good at what they do, and I remember just how daunting it was to, you know, go into the OR with them and watching them do some of these things and these transplants, and just being like, wow, like, this is nuts. Like, this is so nuts. Like, and, you know, I do something and they do something, and I'm like, why does it look so bad when I do it, but it looks so good when you do it? And you know, and that's a humbling experience, and that, it's an uncomfortable experience. But if you're willing to go out and swim in the deep end with these people, and sort of, it requires a lot of you being able to kind of check your own ego, your thoughts, your dreams, and I really just want to try to learn from this person. It's something that they're really special at. It allows you to elevate yourself into that sphere. And if you're able to find some of these things, I want to learn about car buying, and I take in this car buying approach from this guy, and that's something that you were able to kind of pull in from them, and something that they were good at, and ends up impacting your results.
Yeah, my finances.
And your finances, right? Which, like it or not, end up having to be important.
Yeah, yep. I always ask people 3 questions when they come onto the show, and I think this is a good segue to lean into those. The first question for you is, who are your mentors, and what are your favorite or most memorable mentoring moments that you either gave or received?
Yeah. Well, I can, just for the, we can stay on task with what we're doing at the moment. A good friend of mine, and someone who I would consider a mentor, regardless of how he feels about it, is Dr. Alan Selner, who Dr. Al is a little bit of an enigma in Manhattan Beach, but so Al has done a lot of things and met a lot of people, and made a lot of his contribution. But along the way hosted some infomercial, hosted a show on Lifetime. He's kind of done this media sphere, and he has been able to kind of guide me in some sense of some ways that you as a physician are able to make some of your contribution in that sphere. And I think having someone who has done it already, that believes in you. It's crazy the kind of power that gives you. It makes you feel like you can do it. It's like if they think you can do it, then why would you think that you can't do it? So I think at least in some of this space, us finding ourselves on this podcast, that's been a big impact for me. But almost in the same sense, I still it just makes me think of this moment that I had with Nick Volpe, who's the chairman at Northwestern, and kind of the guy that I think of for giving me my at least for me personally, kind of my big break there. I remember when I met him as a med student. We're coming through from Nebraska, and we had sat down. He decided to take a meeting with me. We sat down for maybe 30 minutes and talked, and it's this corner office in Michigan Ave. Chairman, Harvard trained, chairman of Northwestern, and I'm like, oh man, and I remember him he's a funny guy too. If you ever get a chance to meet him, he's just like, wow, you're not in Nebraska anymore, are you? And I'm looking around, you got all the lights, everything's all shiny, and I'm like, yeah, man. I mean, we are not in Nebraska anymore, and we got a chance to kind of get to know each other. But I still remember there was a moment after a surgical case, my first year of residency, that I was sitting there kind of writing this note, and I remember Dr. Volpe walks up to me and he's just like, Alex, you've got what it takes, and I'm like what? And he's like, junior resident, operating, with the chairman, Northwestern, new guy in town, and he's like, and you were just steady. It's like, you were just steady. He's like, I would have never known if you were nervous, you were anxious. He's like, he's like, you have what it takes. And I still, right, this was I don't know, 5 years ago.
Wow.
I still remember it. And it's one of those things that, you never know, what sort of chance some of these moments that you share with these people can have as an impact on you. And in some senses, I still remember, from then thinking, Man, all right. I mean, if he thinks I can do it, well, like, who am I? I'm not going to argue with Nick Wolfe. I didn't argue with him too much, from what I remember. But I think that ended up being, a big influence for me.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
How about you?
for me, I mean, there's a lot of awesome mentoring moments. I'll share this one. When I was young, it was like my first year in college. I was a server at the Olive Garden, and this is in my hometown, Tucson, Arizona. And where I lived, it was like 15 miles, kind of like away from the actual like downtown city.
Mm-hmm.
So where anyone would perform, there it was far away from that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm serving, and in walks Steve Harvey and like his crew,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not even serving them.
Huh.
But as the night goes on, they're like being a little more demanding, and the other server comes over to me and she's like, "Hey, can you take these guys? I think that your personality will like really help with everything."
Yeah.
I was like, "Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll take Steve Harvey. Why not?" So, I was just kind of like shooting the shit with them and serving them all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up staying like 2 hours past closing time, but like they were like there talking to me. And I was like, well, this is a really special moment. I'm not sure I'll ever have someone like Steve Harvey walking in the doors like this and taking their time to, talk to me. So I'm just going to sit here, and
Yeah.
if my manager says we have to go, then we'll go. But until
Yeah.
then, I'm not moving.
Yeah.
And all in all, he's looking at me. He's like, "Seth, let me tell you the two most important things in life." He's like, "Rule number 1, don't sweat the little things. Rule number 2, everything's a little thing." And
Wow, okay.
like, that feeling of just like, oh, like I can breathe,
Yeah.
like just went through my body, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like what I needed to hear at that moment in time.
Yeah.
And that's always kind of stuck with me. It's like, why not go for it?
Huh?
Anything that I think of that is too big for me, or, is out of my reach, I could be making that up. I might be thinking in a way where that's, it's just, it's out of my reach. But then when I go back to that saying like, oh no, that's just, it's a little thing. I'm not going to sweat, how big that is or how big I think that is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a moment in time where that, kind of like changed my way of thinking for going after everything that I've ever went after.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's incredible. Well, and it's also, I think it's, it ends up being telling when you have some of these experiences that you can remember so vividly, years later, right? It's
Yeah.
like years later, and you remember, so many of, aspects of some of these moments. And I often kind of wonder, on the day to day, what's going to be that moment moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
That is this going to be something that 5 years from now, we're hanging out somewhere in LA, and we think back to this moment, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's this moment that we were able to share. Is that going to be one of those moments that you remember 5 years later, when the blur of the month and the weeks, but there was that one moment that you were able to share with someone.
Absolutely. All the time. And that's why I'm mostly like, yes to everything that I can do, because you never know when that moment's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get to the second question that I always ask people.
Please.
And we touched on it a little bit, but what books are you reading,
Mm-hmm.
and what books would you recommend to others?
Well, so I sort of find myself in a little bit of a transition at the moment, where I've sort of been a perpetual student my entire life. So the first time that I have not been kind of taking classes or like in an educational role has been 3 months ago, so I'm 30, and I've gone, I took no time off. I've gone straight through for all of my training, and the being in this new situation, I think initially was a little bit uncomfortable because you're always used to having this thing that you're striving towards, and this new kind of achievement that you're working towards. And I found, so I came across a book that was actually recommended by a friend of mine called The Overachiever's Dilemma. The overarching idea is kind of one of mindfulness and really sort of being present in the moment. And the way that he talks about overachievers, and I'm not sure if I would put myself in that category, maybe, but just this idea of a subset of people that are driven and they work towards something, and then once they achieve this thing that it is that they work towards, they don't have any appreciation for it. There's no moment where you really kind of reflect on like, wow, like I worked so hard to get to this thing. But in actuality, what a lot of people end up feeling is on like a shortcoming that, like that in this achievement, why didn't I achieve more? Why, how can I achieve more? Regardless of what that goal was, can I put a bigger number on that? Can I, can I get a bigger house, faster car, whatever? Working towards this kind of climb, and this sort of overachiever's dilemma is, this idea that, that these achievements aren't what are going to bring you happiness. And that your true happiness is actually right now. That like in this moment, and having sort of that mindfulness that, it's not I'll be happy when, it's I'll be happy now. I am happy now, and that there isn't going to be there are things that you can want to achieve and you can want to strive for, and that's fine, and and you should, but knowing that as that journey goes along, some people can spend their entire life waiting for something better to come along, and it just never comes, and then you end up in this situation at the you spent all this time chasing all these things and you never really found fulfillment and true sort of satisfaction in this journey that you were on, and I think that this book has kind of given me a lot of I guess ways that I've gone about trying to incorporate some of these things into my life. And you actually, to your point, it's one thing to read about something; it's something different to actually put it into practice. And as I was reading through this, I didn't want to be one of those guys. So one of the things that they talk about is having a moment on a day-to-day basis where you kind of pull yourself out of your future, your past, your hopes, and really find something that you're grateful for in this moment. So I actually ended up buying a calendar that now sits on my fridge. It's a little dry erase calendar where every day I write something that I'm grateful for today. And there's no rules to it there, but it's just, it's something in this moment that I feel makes me excited about today. Not about tomorrow, not about a upcoming vacation, new project, whatever, but right now is something that means something to me and that I'm excited about. And it's been fun because as I've been chipping away on this little calendar, then I can look back on this month and I see all these things that I was grateful for over the course of that last month, and it's brought me a lot of joy. And I think that this book I've recommended to a handful of my friends, particularly some overachieving ones, to help try to find some of that same satisfaction, that same fulfillment.
Awesome. That's one of the best answers to that question that I've ever received. I love that. The last question.
Yeah.
How would you recommend to someone on how to find their extraordinary?
You got to find Seth. I think
it's that easy.
Yeah,
come to me.
I think you got to find Seth. What that half joke, half not joke actually. And I think part of it is because I think you're in a position where, you're meeting a lot of people and you're getting a lot of different influences. And that gives you perspective. It gives you a lot of perspective. And I think you're a very introspective guy. And I think that, when we talk about this stuff with the mics, without the mics, I can tell that you're a part of things. And I think as you get all these influences, and I think as your podcast grows and as you continue to do this, which I know that you will, it's going to give you an opportunity to be that guy that sits down with that waiter at Olive Garden one day and be able to provide something for them that ends up maybe changing their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, I think it's, as you chase what you want to do, I think making sure that you get the right community of people around you and the right influences. And, I think those things are what are really going to make anything possible.
Dude, that's awesome. Hey, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you,
Absolute
Seth.
pleasure having you on the pod. I'm really thankful to Dr. Al for introducing us, and I'm so excited to keep having conversations with you. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but my mind is just like, I'm in that like flow zone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love talking to people about this, and I love talking to people who also care about this, about these things. So,
Well, thank you, man. I'm very fortunate and very, very grateful. And you made it on my calendar today.
Yes.
I am very grateful for the time we're able to spend together.
Right on. Hey, well, how can people find you?
So I've got my Instagram account, aka Dr. K. It's a little bit of a joke. My last name is Knezovic. It's I have a lot of patients that I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Dr. Knezovic, and they're like, Dr. What? And I'm like, people call me Dr. K. So it's made things a little bit easier to find.
Right on.